Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett, and joining us right now on set, in the flesh and live, is our friend Matt Skallerud from Pink Banana Media and I Love Gay. Matt, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Love being here.
All right. We were going to kick it off with sort of a highbrow thought process, but we'll go in any direction you like, and that is the following. One of your Pink Banana Media can talk to most any corporation client, big or small, and you can help them have a voice in social media. That's one aspect of what you do. And when we look at social media now, it seems like Facebook in particular, and I guess Instagram as well, and then of course Twitter, there's a lot of negativity or negative stories floating around about all those platforms, about transparency, user data being used improperly, influencing, they can't take things down fast enough that are fake, how do they flag real or fake? What's your take on all this?
Well, social has grown up, and now it's part of the real world.
Good point.
So we loved it. We loved the beginning. My mother would get on and watch her great grandchildren grow up on Facebook. That's the motivation, is that they want to see these things. That was the beautiful part of it. That's when we're skipping through the poppy fields and we're all happy. And the downside is that there's people that don't necessarily think that same way, that have ulterior motives, and they get in there and we're like, I didn't even think about that. And that's what we're, essentially though, even today, because Facebook, we do so much, everything's targeting. Everything we do as a business is you can reach an LGBT audience, but we want to reach a more specific one. But Facebook today said, but now they lost a court battle, and they're colliding with the rules, especially for real estate. So you can't really promote real estate, or certain things you can't promote as categories that target by gender, target by sexual orientation, because it runs afoul of the laws.
And I think zip code is one of them too, yeah.
Real estate and a few other categories that they've just clamped down as of today. They said, nope, you can't do it anymore.
Today?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't see that. Yeah, I did see a story where they had said, I believe it was yesterday, that they've looked at the 2020 election already, and they said that the Trump campaign has already invested millions, and they've already spent millions on Facebook. Yeah. And I was wondering what they were spending it on, or if they're just going right back to
lock her up.
Well, right. Well, putting out pro-Trump story, or putting out a bad story about Bernie or about Biden or whoever. And we had talked about how if you were a newspaper in the old days and you did something like that, you had to say where it came from, right? You had to say that this was this was paid advertisement. Do you have to do that with social media now?
You do on Facebook now. So if it's political, and the problem is that it always goes from one direction way over to another. So now many ads that aren't even political, they'll tag them and say, or flag it and say it's political, and you need to be certified that yes, we know who you are, and you could definitely run that political ad on our platform. And they'll even state in there, this is paid for by, and so they're getting into that now as well. So this whole election is going to be very interesting, because it is going to be very dominated by social. And that's the thing. Facebook is one area where we're going to continue to see, some of your listeners may not like hearing this, but they've done a few studies and they're realizing it's just this whole fake news and stuff on Facebook that people are seeing is sometimes it skews a little older when it comes to the, people falling for it and saying, oh, that's got to be true. And they share it with all their family members. And younger people are a little more adept at just knowing how to weed through that stuff, because they know it's, just because it's online doesn't make it true. And so there's a lot of disconnects as far as...
I don't know, that's a fascinating market observation, actually, that the younger user of social media, maybe having been raised on it or having... They don't take it as...
It's not gospel. It's you see something and you want to believe it's true, maybe, and that's the whole thing. A lot of this feeds into what people want to believe, and but you see it, and I know for myself, if it's not something I've heard before, it sounds rather interesting, different, compelling, I'm just going to wait till somebody else reports on it. Let's see if there's more articles about it, and sometimes there's just not. Well, sometimes the source also tells you.
So the LGBTQ community has always been, I would say, at the forefront of technology. Go way back to AOL chat rooms, and so we've always found safe spaces, I would say, to congregate or have conversations. Are all these new things that are going on with all the heavy hand of regulation in many cases necessary because, as you said, they've finally grown up and welcome to the real world? How is that going to affect the LGBTQ community, you think?
Yeah, it's just we're just going to be right alongside. I mean, especially when we think of the concept of safe spaces and, horrible videos that people can see on Facebook. Always remember, like the shooting in New Zealand. We're not following those people on Facebook, so we're not seeing those videos. So it's still safe for us. We're mostly seeing things that are from Facebook is so siloed that we really only see things that are specifically within our.
They
network.
said they took down 1.5 million videos.
Because they've got because this is all they probably posted it. I'm sure they streamed it from like a business page rather than a personal profile. And all those crazies that saw it.
Share.
Yeah, and they see it, then they download it, and then they're able to share it. But it's still, at least it's within their networks. We don't see it because we're not part of that.
Right.
And so it's but in general, it's there's a lot of facets of how every time there's something comes along, it impacts.
So what's happening with Facebook? They had said that they were going to change the platform toward more of a private chat sort of thing. So is that almost like text messaging?
Nobody really knows because the newsfeed is their bread and butter.
Right.
That's where they make really most of their revenue. And so because they know a lot about us, which goes towards now they're going to
Programmatic buying.
and targeting but now the laws are going to make it so there's less opportunities there for advertisers to buy into. But what they're buying into is just to be part of that feed. If they're not part of the feed, because the feed is what people are looking at. And so if you're not there, and if you're an ad somewhere else, then you're invisible. And so, that being their bread and butter, they're going to have to figure out how to make that work. And it's not necessarily the private side is like Facebook stories, Instagram stories. They last for 24 hours. They're within a network. And people are successfully doing more advertising there, but the bread and butter and the majority of it is still not in that space. It's not in that ethereal, it comes and it goes.
But as this roadmap changes, you have to adapt pretty quickly on your business side because of what you're offering your clients, and you have to be a step ahead of it. So are you changing the way you approach this with clients, or are you not at that point yet? Is it?
It's just that Facebook is for us. It's been secondary for a little while. So
Instagram, I think, is your.
Well, no, now Twitter. And so
Twitter.
Instagram is where most people say that they spend their time, but it's hard to monetize. It's hard to. It's great but you can run a beautiful ad on Facebook, and that's what it goes to. Facebook, you're either within your nice little siloed. This is my 5,000 maximum friends, family, and people, or you put it on a business page, and you're paying. If you put it on a business page, no one really sees it. They just don't really show that very much unless you pay. But when you pay, you can actually make that also show up on Instagram as well. So now you're kind of leveraging, but through a paid advertisement, very inexpensive, but you're really leveraging Facebook and Instagram for that. But the wide open field for all this stuff, especially organic, is still Twitter. Not everybody's into it, but for those that are, I think they quoted 126 million daily active users, which is very important because that's the key number of how many people are actually using it actively every day. Instagram was, I think, about 180 million, and then Facebook is far higher, but it's siloed within our networks.
So the Facebook number has to be taken with not a grain of salt, but you have to parse that because the numbers are representative of the different islands or silos that you happen to be in. Yeah. So a client comes to you, let's say it's a destination, because you do a lot of work with multiple tourism agencies. What does a Twitter outreach look like? Let's say let's just pick Manchester, England.
Yeah. Well, what they're going to do is typically they have a story to get out. So getting that story out, pushing it through Twitter, as well as Facebook and.
Do you help them with the story?
Yeah, we'll help them.
If they have a vague idea, but do you then say this is what you have to do to create a story, a compelling?
We usually listen to them and try to figure out what story do you want to tell, and then sometimes we'll have a writer kind of help put that together, or there'll be media that have already written stories. We can work with that. But also, especially when you're dealing with social and stuff, there's a lot of influencers out there, especially in the travel world, and we'll sometimes leverage them to be able to help create content. Sometimes what they're able to do is create content kind of in advance of, like, say, an event and talk about it, and then integrate their social media posts into that kind of content and that story. And then during the event, let's just say it's a Pride Festival or something, then there's lots of content. You've got this bell curve, and it's like tons of stuff coming up then. So you want to really focus on what can we do in advance, what can we do focusing on during, and then afterwards, what happens? Does that stuff just go away? And so, but a lot of times we'll work with influencers or media that can create something that integrates the social media and a good story, and that'll last for a year or two. Google will pick it up. You can take that content and then target it to in Facebook outside of just Twitter, and really just kind of keep that story alive for quite a long time. But that's essentially what we do. We work with destinations or any company and try to get away from just the idea of I want to buy an ad. Let's figure out, like, usually they have a story to tell, and it's such a wide variety of different ways to do that, including the ad.
We're talking to social media expert Matt Skallerud. His company, Pink Banana Media, or hashtag I Love Gay, which we've been tagging our stuff with. You've been doing a lot of travel, I think, this quarter. Any great places you've been recently?
Well, I just got back from Berlin. There was a big travel conference out there, a convention, ITB it's called, and that was incredible. I mean, I never even saw the whole thing. Can you imagine going to a convention and it's just so large that you'll never see?
Large in terms of
physical size.
Really?
It's really that big, with every country represented with these huge spaces. And there was a nice LGBT travel pavilion, and so we were a part of that and did all of our schmoozing and networking. It was good.
Any surprise countries there that you wouldn't expect?
Well, oddly enough, they put the LGBT travel pavilion right next to Tunisia and Algeria, and Iran was had a not as so much as a country, but Iran
had a crane and a
just down the road, and everybody got along just fine. But we did think it was a little odd.
Yeah, that's a mapped issue. Someone's in an office like, where are we going to put the pavilion? Right over here, right? But they didn't even think about it.
It's like when I worked for Subaru, they put Israel at the table with Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan at this international conference we were at. And we're like, oh my God, what did you do? The Middle East? And then they did the same thing with the Koreans, the Japanese, and Chinese.
They all don't get along. Yeah,
Asia. I was like, okay.
I think we were just in the back 40. They just said, we'll put them back there. But it worked very well.
What's going on in the travel space?
Yeah. Well, that's, number one, they'll love it when I say it. IGLTA is coming here next month, and that's the biggest International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association, and their whole convention is here. So for travel, it's real big on New York right now. So.
Right. Is it because of Stonewall 50 and New York or World Pride?
Part of it, because then once you go from IGLTA's event in April, and then you go over, 2 months later is World Pride and everything going, and that's just going to be a crazy few months here in New York. And so a lot of people are traveling in for a wide variety of reasons.
Is there a way a brand could take advantage of that from a social aspect?
Oh, yeah, because, number one, all you have to do is talk about what you're doing and hashtag Stonewall 50, hashtag World Pride 2019. That gets you in there. But you have to do it in a real way. You don't just want to, because you see this all the time. Somebody will just post something and hashtag has no relevance, and people kind of look at whatever, they see it. But if there's something relevant that's part of the story, a brand, and there's quite a few that I think are preparing themselves to be a big part of that here.
What are the expectations? How do you tell a client, here's what your expectations should be coming out of a storytelling campaign? Let's say it's the Twitter example of Manchester you use. I have a story to tell. Because you could probably, through very detailed research and a whole bunch of mechanisms, track the story, the successful storytelling to a ticket purchase or getting to the destination. But that's a real complex path. What's the best a client can hope for?
Well, that's they still want. We were meeting with Las Vegas recently, and as far as tourism, and if you just say it's the click-through, they're going to throw you out of the office. So
they want a room. They want you a room.
They want to make sure you're talking business, and they use the word KPI a lot. But it's just what are you able to measure that shows that this is performing? But that's the beauty of it too. Before, if it was just banner advertising, you're just buying by every 1,000 impressions. So you're just buying thousands and thousands of impressions, hoping for a click-through, and then from there you could track them, but there's not a whole lot left. But in today's world, there's another piece with engagement where not only did they see it, they click on it, but did they share it? Did they like it? Did they do something more with it? And you're seeing that, especially when those conversations, when it's not just content, but a lot of these conversations, and that's what social media is, just people talking. And those conversations, you can kind of predict more how you're going to do, because working on Twitter, if we post something, we'll always have like a minimum of 1,000 impressions. No matter what we post it'll always get about 1,000. But if we do our job right, it'll get 5,000 to 10,000. But at least that way we kind of have a range, and we know no matter what we do, if you do it the right way, strategy-wise, hashtags and connecting it up with the right profiles, you're going to do pretty decently well. And you spread that out on average. Companies now have a better idea how well they're going to do without just buying a bulk of impressions.
Vegas seems to have, they were very, very deep, at least it felt like from our perspective of reaching the LGBT traveler. but then it seemed to have gone off. Is that true?
Most of them, I was going to say they all do, but I might get in trouble. But
No, I think
most of them do. They
get in, get out.
They get it, and they don't see them. The business thing aspect, not just speaking for Vegas or anything, but a lot of them just get in, do it, and then realize like, okay, this is what we wanted, and then they feel like they don't have to work as hard anymore.
That's a good way of saying it. They made an investment.
Yeah.
They did see a return.
Yeah.
But then they think, oh, well, we have this consumer. They're paying attention to us. But the truth is, you still have to put money into it.
I mean, New York City is a great example. I love them, and their tourism department headed up by an openly gay man, Fred Dixon. It's wonderful.
In New York City?
In New York City. And he's very active this year. He's been active for the last, say, at least 12 months, being very out there to going to a lot of LGBT events and really speaking about World Pride and IGLTA and everything coming here. But in general, in other years past, they don't have to be as active because
it's New York.
the gays are already
right?
coming.
I mean,
Well, it's like
New
San
York City,
Francisco.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, San Francisco, it's like someone says, oh, we're going to spend $50,000 to get the LGBT community to come. Well, and everybody at the table would be like, well, they're already, you know.
But I'm glad they're doing it, though, because that, as John and I have seen over the years, particularly example of Subaru, a brand we worked with, still to this day getting residual based upon a lot of the work they did, but have not really been in the market as aggressively as they have in years past. And so you say to yourself, it's still important to acknowledge that you're there and you're visible. So I'm glad to hear that New York is doing something, because you're right. You could just say, you know what, it's Stonewall 50 and it's World Pride and they're all getting here and they're going to do all the heavy lifting for us.
Yeah.
You know, it's probably a topic for another show where we have even more time. But there's just something you said that struck me as funny, which is, you know, they haven't been in the market for a while. You know, nowadays in 2019, when a company says, I want to be in the market, what does that even mean anymore? Like back when we all started, there were very clear things. It was print, television,
National, local.
notional. Yeah, exactly. There was a couple of silos, out of home. There was experiential marketing, which was another fancy way of saying festivals, softball tournaments,
sampling,
whatever,
yeah.
sampling. And, you know, TV came with logo, I guess, and you had
Very few invested
Yeah.
in that, yeah.
Now, you know, the members of our community receive their news and information from so many different sources that it's really complicated.
And, you know, at the end of the day, they call it user-generated content, but the users are doing all the work on a daily basis anyway. So the question then becomes, which is a bigger answer than I think what we would have time for, is what are the destinations or what are the brands or what are the companies doing to realize those conversations are there? How can I tap into that and actually be a part of that and maybe have my business or destination more visible on a 24/7, 365 basis where you don't have to work as hard because it's there. And you see pride festivals and everything. There's thousands and thousands of wonderful posts. How can you leverage
So
that?
now you identified one of the probably the biggest impediment to that happening is the client, or in your case, if I had hired you, you would be able to tell me they have to know what those conversations are happening. But instead, you know, it's all reversed. It's like, here's what we want. Let's just use England, the Manchester. Here's our story. Here's our destinations. We are going to start talking about it. When in fact, maybe if I hire a Pink Banana, and instead of any results-oriented things, I say, Matt, I want you to take a month to tell me what people are saying about my destination, right? Yeah. And then you would figure out how you want to enter the conversation. It might be more effective. But you know how it's usually a one-way street. Agency or client says, here's what we're talking about this
Here's
year.
what you're supposed to say about Manchester. Yeah.
Am I right?
Especially with Manchester, I just know I love Gay Manchester.
Yep.
Whenever I go take a peek at it, there's this whole campaign they're doing with. And I should be able to tell you more, but I didn't know we were talking about Manchester.
No, I pulled that out of a hat.
It's a bee. There's a bee, and this bee is this it's an artist, a local artist made this bee, and they have all these different versions, including an LGBT one. It's all rainbowed out in just the right way, and these bees, are kind of art sculptures, are all throughout the city.
They've done that with the cows, and they've done that in different cities.
Yeah.
They do, yeah.
So immediately, you know, if Manchester said, "Hey, we want to tap into some of that," it's like, well, let's start looking at what are the bees up to. But between that and Pride and all those things, there's so much. Just I say Pride a lot because that's where you get the most on a regular basis, it's just so much out there. And so it's not up to the brand or the destination. They're not in control of this. This is happening. The question
Yeah, but they
is,
think they are.
They used to. They some still think they are. They used to expect they were. It's quite a learning curve to go from a PR department and communications that said this is what we're going to say to this is what's going on already, and we just want to be a part of it.
I think there's still a fear out there too with talking directly to the LGBT market, as people will pretend maybe not, but we always hear this misnomer that there's all this money out there for LGBT.
We'd like to throw that out first.
Right. How often have we heard that over the last 10, 20 years? There is no huge boatload of money waiting to be spent. Do you think?
Yeah, it's
you need to be smart about it and have the business case for it, and then they may spend it. But I can't tell you right now 5 brands that are directly marketing to the LGBT consumer. I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to tell you 5.
And over the years, Lexus has been. When you said automotive, I was thinking of Lexus has been out there, and as well as Hyundai. But Lexus has been consistent, but they've been focusing much more on storytelling. I don't know. They were doing some things with their Genesis car.
Really?
Yeah, with. But in general, you don't see as much in that space, I think, as I would have expected by now.
Well, even a lot of the liquor brands that were so prevalent, vodka brands seem to have gone away, or the airlines, or
Yeah. No,
what are you smirking for, Nash?
you remember the day.
Well,
Back in the day.
So I'm a big fan of Absolute because they have been a stalwart companion and supporter of the LGBTQ community. But their brand, they can't control one thing about the category. As more premium vodkas appear, their story, if it doesn't change, means they get bumped down the line to eventually being called the Well. That's the house brand, when they used to be the premium
brand
choice. So that has little to do with the LGBTQ consumer. But if you're that brand and you say to yourself, okay, we have this built-in base of people who love us because we were always there, and they're probably in their 40s and 50s, what about the younger sets they're going for Tito's or Kettle One or whatever? And you to control that or have that conversation is a totally different thing now than it was 20 years ago.
I was just going to say I was at a bar over the weekend, and I was listening because I was sitting there to what people were ordering. And it used to always be Absolute and Tonic, Absolute and Cranberry.
Yeah.
It was all Tito's.
Tito's and Tonic, yeah.
And it was a gay-friendly bar. It wasn't all gay, but there was an awful lot of gay patrons there, and I thought, boy, how Absolute kind of lost that.
It's through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
Through the consumer simply saying, oh, I want to try this now. And that becomes the it brand. It's
contact Absolute.
I know it's just it's almost like waves in a big Hawaiian coastline, the goal is how do you stay on one of those waves? How do you surf a wave and keep going? And the reality is, for most, they just sort of eventually you kind of peter out.
What a great example. What a good metaphor. You can never stay in the tube. They call it when the surfers can go through that curl, but that can't last forever.
But you want it to last as long as possible. You can. And so that's the question. What can you do to keep, because there's always another one that's coming along. What can you do to stay until you're ready to retire? That's the goal.
Listen, if you find that out, let us know.
Yeah, that's the golden secret, right?
Unfortunately, the show can't last forever either. So how would people contact you if they're interested? Now, would you work with smaller companies, obviously?
Oh, yeah. In fact, we're real big on trying to show very clearly, like if a company has $500 per month to spend, which is usually like an entry level, what can they expect? Whether it's email, banner ads, and that's helped a lot because a lot of companies don't really know what to expect from that. So
I think people think it's probably I think it's unattainable, but that's great to hear. So it's
logo has pinkbananamedia.com.
pinkbananamedia.com.
Right.
Or you're also on Facebook, or you're on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Matt Scal, M-A-T-T.
We also posted on our Facebook page today, so you could always contact Matt through there as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you before the big event in April.
We should plan on it.
Yeah. So we'll see what's happening. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you, John. Thank you, Matt. Thanks to the boys in the booth, Garrett and John. Thanks to our friends at Deep Discount. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo and start shopping away for the Shark-Wide sale. Do I have to
Site-wide madness.
Site-wide. What did I call it? Shark-wide.
Shark-wide,
site-wide. Remember to don't text and drive, arrive alive. Did I get it right today?
You got it right, even though you invented it.
I saw another one today on Jersey Transit that I liked that I messed up once before, but it's phones down, heads up.
Oh, I like that one too, yeah.
I like that one. Hey, everybody, have a good week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.